Good morning. Welcome to today's gathering presentation. So I'm going to refer today to two books from Karlfried Graf Durckheim, The Way of Transformation, Daily Life as Spiritual Practice, and The Call for the Master, The Meaning of Spiritual Guidance on the Way to the Self. And I've mentioned before, Durkheim predated, he's German, predated Eckhart Tolle by some time, and I think he influenced quite a bit Eckhart Tolle's teaching that was published in 1999 in The Power of Now. But Durkheim, I think, his two short books are especially powerful and certainly part of what I offer as a teaching about daily practice or daily life as spiritual practice, that that we're really called to elevate our practice so that we might become truly masters, and I would use that word freely, in Carolyn Mace's language, that what's called for today in our evolution of consciousness is not any longer a particular avatar, great teacher, but 1,000 points of light. And so I would call these 1,000 points of light. Anyone, he or she, that would become willing to walk the path of mastery and step into that realm. So one of the things that I was reading this morning, making some notes from Durkheim, is Durkheim talks about two different types of stillness. And again, I've used stillness in my acronym of OASIS, oneness arising from stillness, inspiring simplicity, that stillness is the key, is the foundation, okay, for everything. And Durkheim talks about two types of stillness. He said, the stillness of death, where all movement ceases, and stillness of life, where nothing is left to check the movement of change. Okay, so this would be the idea we talk about with flow, that we develop via our practice this ability to be in stillness, where literally all interference patterns have been removed. We've let go of our attachment to old forms. We've let go of the need to hold on to the banks of the river, as it were, and flow with the river, or what is called in Taoism, or Durkheim uses the same phrase, calls the way. Okay, so this radiant truth calls us to answer the call for the master. Okay, and say the inner master in you has been called, and perhaps you've answered that call, and you're allowing your inner master to listen, to receive guidance from the unmanifested, from the radiant truth of the universe, so that we might become, again, these conduits, portals, bridge between the timeless realm and the earth. The way he describes it, Durkheim, the aim of every practice focused on the way is to make adepts perfect mediums, to enable them to perceive being present in their own true nature and allow it to manifest in them and through them in the world. Okay, so he used the word medium as conduit, portal, window, doorway, portal. It's all the same thing. Again, this radiant truth seeks to manifest through us into our world. And again, from all of my, background and study, I mention always in A Course in Miracles that the essential teaching is that by knowing and fulfilling your function as a medium, as a conduit, as a portal, that this is the secret to your fulfillment, your happiness, your peace of mind, everything. This is the one thing I talk about all the time. The one thing that we would see as the meaning of life, as the purpose for our living, is to serve this function. It's a very simple function once we remove, again, all the obstacles. And we simply allow it to flow through us. That we become, there's a word to use, flux, that we become aligned with the perpetual flux of life, of nature, okay? This thing which is ever flowing, ever changing, and we allow, so we allow in our own life experience, we learn to allow change to happen. And this is that constant process of conscious dying that we might birth, or through us is birthed a new earth. So we become very adept at this practice of simply allowing, that we arise in each day with this openness to what is, how are we going to be used today? We don't have any preconceived notion, any particular idea of how that should be. It might be that after a while in our practice, that a certain pattern arises and that we become comfortable with that pattern and we simply allow it. But at the same time, we're open to, something new. I'm always kind of wondering if on this particular day, I'll receive an email from someone who's interested in the intentional community here, who has some questions about conscious living, whatever. It's again, the openness and willingness to respond to the world. Knowing that once we develop a certain level of mastery, that there'll be some interest, there'll be some way in which the world will approach, because that's the nature of our species, that we are in this process of evolution. And those that are on the path, those that are truly seeking to find happiness, seeking, again, I've talked about that hopefully one day that illusion falls away, that seeking, but in early stages, we are seekers. So it's just key that those of us who have become finders, those of us that would willingly step into mastery, that we're available to serve, to offer whatever support and guidance we might offer to others who are on the path. So it's a very simple process, something that, again, for me, is a very clear definition of my life, and has been for a long time, because I was quite young when I first heard the call, and it seemed pretty preposterous at the time, pretty radical, a very unpopular thing to do for many of us, to answer the call and have it pretty much throw a wrench into any possibility of a normal life, any possibility of allowing the conditioning of our culture to take hold. And so, living an unconditioned life is not an easy thing to do, in the sense that it's, like I say, unpopular. So, again, those of us who choose to be on this path. We seek out, I sought out many mentors, many others who had reached a certain level of mastery, and listened, read their books if they had written things, if they had been teaching in a time before there were books. Jesus, for example, the teaching was carried on in certain ways by others, and then in the case of A Course in Miracles, suddenly it would arise through a medium, Helen Schuckman, a woman that heard a voice saying, "This is A Course in Miracles, please take notes." And even though she thought it was crazy, she talked with a colleague of hers. These were very educated, intelligent people. Said, "Well, what can it hurt? Let's take notes and see what happens." And 7 years later, a very remarkable book was published, and certainly captured my attention when I was early in my process of recovery and ready to begin earnest study. And so I answered that call, and when I heard a woman speak about this Course in Miracles, I was immediately aware that I was supposed to move to where she lived in Amherst, Massachusetts, and study A Course in Miracles with her. And early on in my study with Claire, it was really interesting. We did this, she was a therapist as well as a spiritual teacher. And when I was coming up with certain resistance, as most anybody would, to the teaching, especially the fact that it seemed to be Jesus who was the teacher, she suggested that I do a little dream therapy. So she encouraged me for the next several days to pay attention, to make an intention before I go to sleep, to dream about something significant that might inform my resistance to having this teacher, Jesus,